Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Health Tech Health Check series. We know our customers are incredibly busy, which is why we're calling this a micro-learning session. We're committed to providing you as much value and learning as possible in 30 minutes or less. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and get started and jump into it. My name is Brock Fawcett, and I'm the Customer Marketing Manager here at Vasion, the visionary company that makes technologies like printer logic possible. And I'm excited to be your moderator once again for the Health Tech Health Check series. And as the title suggests, we have geared the series toward customers in the healthcare sector. But even if you're joining us from another industry or profession, whether you're a customer, a prospect, or a partner, we trust you're going to find value today. Before we get started, let me display some QR codes so you can register for the remainder of our series. In our first episode, which is now available on demand, we covered ways you can optimize your printer logic investment with out-of-the-box features that go above and beyond simply eliminating print servers. So if you didn't register for that, please register for the on-demand, and you can watch it at your leisure. It was really a great presentation. In August next month, we're going to be demonstrating how Printer Logic is developing some game-changing output management features, breaking into a new arena that we are calling output automation. Then, in our fourth and final episode in September, we're going to be broadcasting live from the Vasion Executive Briefing Center to show you some pretty amazing Vasion technologies that will enable you to make cross-functional orchestrated automations a reality at your organization. Today, however, we're going to be diving into some of our advanced security features, which we feel are incredibly important for those working with sensitive documents such as healthcare records. We'll cue that conversation up by talking about where this lies on your digital transformation journey. We'll discuss advanced security features like secure release and off-network printing and their respective architectures. We'll do a quick cost-benefit analysis of advanced security taken from one of our current healthcare customers. And we'll end today's session with a Q&A segment. So feel free to add any and all of your questions to the Q&A form on the screen. And don't worry if you arrive late or if you have to leave early, we'll be sure to send you a follow-up email, which will have the recording of today's presentation, along with QR codes or links to our upcoming presentations as well. So now let me hand the session over to our actual Printer Logic experts. We have Kevin Hill, who's account manager for those in enterprise healthcare, and we have Kayla Morris, product engineering support manager and resident Printer Logic techspert. You two, it's all yours. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction, Brock. And I'm happy to be here. And I've been working specifically with our healthcare customers for about 2 years now. And I've gotten to know a lot, like hundreds, and through customer calls, through in-person visits. And there's a few trends that I've noticed that you might find some insight into. The first trend is that there's a commonality into why Printer Logic was adopted in the first place. And so before Printer Logic, admins and IT typically spend a lot of time focused on print through help desk tickets and overall management. And there most likely was print servers that were involved that were costly and introduced a security vulnerability. And overall visibility was lacking. And so for some customers, they might have picked Printer Logic for one or two of those reasons. But for the majority, most, if not all, those challenges were present. And so the first trend that I noticed is how essential our solution is in solving significant problems for health systems and hospitals. But the second trend that I noticed was that it created an interesting dynamic between you, our customers, and us. And so the initial problems that we solved were so significant that a future state beyond that were rarely, if ever, discussed. And so you've implemented and benefit from a reliable, scalable SaaS solution, but for us, eliminating the print servers was just the beginning. And so just because our core products solve those initial, problems or check your initial boxes, it doesn't mean that we stop building tools or a roadmap to aid your digital transformation. And so most of you are here at the empowered end user stage, and where I want to take a step back and just define what that means a little bit, and then dive into a little bit deeper on how you might be able to empower end users even more today. And at the current stage that you're at, So you benefit from a simplified, centralized print management solution. And so end users have a simplified experience being able to print wherever they need to, whenever, and IT doesn't have to get involved. And we have tools like our self-service portal and our IP address range deployment that make that possible, all while back-end management's happening and the impact to end users is not existent. They don't know the difference. And so for admins, they have a simplified experience because you're able to manage your environment with different deployment options. You can swap out drivers easily. You can adjust names and ports, and you also gain visibility into who's printing what. And that's all done through a centralized admin console. But to further empower your end users, we recently released the simplified scanning. And so end users are now able to scan items to either an email address or cloud storage like Google Drive, OneDrive, SharePoint. And we're currently developing a scan to home or scan to network functionality that will soon be released. And then admins, of course, still have the full control over managing what emails and cloud storage options the end users have access to, and we're still gathering the reporting of who's scanning what to where in our reports tab. And if any of this information is new to you, or if there was something that I mentioned that you feel like you're not leveraging properly, I encourage you to reach out to your customer success manager, because we want to ensure that you're leveraging our core product as much as possible. But now that you've moved through the first two stages of eliminating print servers, empowering your end users, what is the next move? And I wanted to share an unfortunate record that the healthcare sector set last year. Can you think of what it is? Not good. It is security breaches. There were 725 security breaches reported last year. And the previous record was in 2022 with 720 breaches. So that's a lot. That's a high number. But there was one statistic that stood out to me in this, and it was that the average cost of each one of those breaches was $11 million. And that's a lot of money. And the total amount spent on security breaches last year was just shy of $8 billion, $7.9 billion. That's a B, not an 8. And so, no wonder that security is top of mind for healthcare. And the last thing that we want is that your print environment is a source of any one of these attacks. And so we had to ask ourselves, how do we make printing more secure without compromising the convenience for end users or the automation for admins that's beyond eliminating print servers? And so increasing your environment was the natural next step. And so we have built our advanced security features, and we've designed them to give your print environment an extra layer of protection. In a sense, it offers a preventative or a proactive approach. And then we had zero trust be that foundation. And so these features ensure that you can reach a network architecture that allows open access to any employee, whether it be in person, remote, or hybrid, with user identity authentication every time. And this allows that you can maintain the security of your network by only allowing trusted users in. And then we couple that with convenient print release methods that ensure that your documents are printed by the right people to the right places. And this level of document security gives you the ability to control when documents are printed. It ensures that PHI and PII don't end up in the wrong hands. And it also empowers your traveling and remote employees and affiliate clinics to print without the need of a VPN. And so we're excited to dive into these features with you today. I'll pass it over to Kayla.
Awesome. So let's just dive into exactly what is secure release printing. Now, secure release printing is actually how we ensure that the document or documents are secure and end up in the right person's hands. And the way that we do that is essentially where an end user can send a print job to a printer until they walk up to that printer to authenticate to release that print job. Now let's talk about different ways that we use secure release printing here at Vasion. One of them is what we call direct secure release printing. Now that's when an end user specifically prints to a printer they want to walk up to release that print job. Now, say they don't necessarily know what printer they want to release that print job to, that's where pull printing comes into play. Now, pull printing is essentially the same thing. However, the end users will submit a print job to a virtual queue. That way, they can release that print job of any pull-enabled printer that is set up in the environment. So these two both are actually still direct IP printing. So the print job still gets sent to the printer over port 9100. Therefore, the printer or the end user needs to connect to that printer and be on the network. So that's where our offline secure release printer comes from. Now, the way that we set this up is we set up what we call a service client in the environment. Now, you'll hear me mention the service client throughout this presentation. And in a nutshell, what it is essentially is a client that the admin of the environment will set in your network that will specifically run any type of services that we have to offer on that service client. Specifically with this case scenario, it would hold that print job. With that being said, an end user can submit that print job to a printer, a specific printer, and they can go home for the day. They can turn off their laptop and go home for the day, walk in the next day or maybe 2 days after to authenticate at that printer to release that print job. Now, let's specifically go into the authentication when they go up to the printer to release their print jobs. One of them is simple badge release. Now, this kind of speaks for itself. This is essentially where an end user can swipe their badge and then release that print job. A really popular one is going to be our QR code release. Now, we do offer a mobile app for iOS and Android. Now, within that app, there is a scanner. So with that being said, the admin of that environment would be able to walk up to that, be able to post that QR code on the printer. That way the end users can walk up to that printer, scan that QR code to release that print job. Another one is what we call a control panel application. You'll often hear me refer to this as our CPA. This is essentially where an end user can walk up to that printer. They'll be able to sign in onto the screen and be able to put in their PIN number or swipe their badge, be able to see all of their documents that are assigned to that user to release that print job. Now, going into the architecture of this is essentially what it is. The end user on the left-hand side has a Vasion or printer logic client running on their workstation. So when they submit that print job to a printer, again, that goes over port 9100, they can then authenticate at that printer and then be able to release that print job. I'm going to show you very briefly what the end user experience is. Now, this particular example is going to be that CPA that I was referring to before. This is essentially the screen that they'll see specifically on the printer. So on the left-hand side, you'll see they can just simply swipe their badge and be able to see all of the print jobs that are assigned to that user. Or on the right-hand side, they're able to sign in and put in their PIN number to release that print job. This is the next screen that they'll see whether they swipe their badge or put in their PIN number. On the left-hand side, if you want to click print release, that'll just simply be able to show them all of the print jobs are assigned to them. Or very briefly and kind of off topic, we do offer simplified scanning. So on the right-hand side, the end user can scan the email or scan to the cloud using various cloud storages. Specifically going back to the print release, I was talking about how many print jobs or print job is assigned to that user. So this is what they would see. Now, they'll see all of the print jobs, but they don't necessarily have to choose one particular print job to release one at a time. You can actually select multiple print jobs or all of the print jobs to release at that printer.
Hey, real quick, before you get started, some people arrived a little bit later. We're starting to get some questions in the Q&A, and I just wanted to remind everyone, especially those people who arrived a little bit later, that if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. So sorry for interrupting.
No problem. And welcome, everybody. And so in this stage, this is obviously the goal of this is to secure your environment. That's the main goal. But we did notice a really powerful byproduct of the customers that started to implement these features. And the secure release is one of the best ways that you can save on print costs in your environment. One, it eliminates end users from accidentally printing something or never picking up a job. We refer to that as an abandoned print job. And I've seen the average print waste stats that range from 10 to 30%. And it's a hard thing to measure, but we can all agree that there is print waste in any environment. And it can be costly because you're looking at wasting paper, ink, energy, wear and tear on your fleet. And so, but also cost savings come also by reducing the need for printer purchases or reducing your print fleet. And so instead of having a printer at every desk of every person that maybe need to print sensitive, documents, you can centralize printers on a floor, and then it still offers the ability to print those sensitive documents, but not print them until someone's standing in front of that printer. So you get security there. And this example, I wanted to share this really powerful example from one of our current customers. They're a large health system with multiple locations, and they had the goal of saving costs on their print environment while also increasing security. And so what we did is we helped analyze their environment by using their annual print consumable costs, which broke down to 1 cent for black and white and 4 cents per color. It might be a little bit different in your environment. But then we factored in a conservative 10% of reduction in waste. And the result of this was them projected on savings, over 400,000 in their environment. So pretty substantial. And almost every conversation that I had with our current customers, everybody's trying to cut costs. And if this is something that's interesting to you or aligns with the current initiative, I encourage you to reach out to your customer success manager. We'll help analyze your environment as well, and we can work on something similar like this for you.
Awesome. I do want to touch on something else that Vasion has to offer as far as security goes. We do offer off-network printing. Now, essentially what off-network printing is how we integrate a zero trust environment into your organization. So I wanted to show you a little bit of the architecture of what that looks like. Now, I want to break this down step by step. On the very left-hand side here, at the bottom left-hand side corner, you'll see the client, the end user's client running on their workstation. You'll notice that this end user's client cannot communicate to the printer, therefore they cannot direct IP print to it. So the way that we can set up off-network printing is that we can integrate what we call an in-total routing service in your environment that you can see at the top right-hand corner there. Now, this in-total routing service is essentially where the admin of the environments can set up that service client. Now, I did mention the service client before, but one of the services that you can run on that service client is going to be that in-total routing service. So with that being said, the end user can submit a print job. That print job will go through an AWS gateway. This particular AWS gateway you can host or PrintLogic can host, but it's essentially just passing through onto that in-total routing service that the admin has already dedicated to your environment, and then it gets sent to the printer over port 9100. We do offer web printing, however, it is still in development. We do offer a beta pilot program. So if you would like to follow that development, it is a really cool program. So I would encourage you to scan this QR code and get into that program so you can see what web printing has to offer. Now it's time for questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we're going to get started with our Q&A session. We did have some questions come through, but before we get into that, if you haven't already, I have a favor of you, and that is to consider reviewing PrintLogic on Capterra, G2, and Trust Radius. So these QR codes will take you directly to those respective sites, and if you're a current customer, of course, they'll confirm that, and you have an opportunity to make $25 per each site for leaving us a review. We'd be very appreciative of that. Your honest feedback not only shapes how Vasion products like PrintLogic evolve and improve, it also provides guidance to your peers across the IT profession who need assurance that they're making the best automation technology choices for their organization. So I appreciate your taking the time to do that. So let's get started with some of these questions. An anonymous attendee writes, is badge printing an option on single function devices as well as MFDs? Or do you have an external device to read the user badges on a single function device?
That is a very good question. The first part of that question is typically when we use badge scanning, it is on an MFD, just because that badge scanner is already implemented into that printer. However, if you did wanted to integrate that into your single function printer, the way that that would work is you would have to find an external badge reader and be able to plug into that printer and swipe their badge to submit that print job. But most commonly used, like I said, it is being held at that MFD just because it's already implemented into the hardware of that printer.
Awesome. Hopefully that answers your question. Cody has asked, is it possible or recommended to have mixed environment with secure release on some printers and not on others? For example, printers too old for CPA.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. We have organizations that essentially will have some CPA installed on their MFDs and maybe a QR code on others. The QR code is actually what we use for single functioning devices because you don't necessarily need a CPA for that. That QR code, the admin literally prints out a QR code that is specific to that printer. They can, the end users can walk up to that printer, sign into their app to scan that QR code to release their print job.
Thank you for that. Anonymous user has asked, will our print jobs ever be held in the cloud? I imagine someone's asking that because maybe there's some trepidation about sensitive information being hacked from the cloud. So.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when we talk about secure release printing, this is not really applicable because those print jobs never ever leave your network. So I would assume this question is going to be specifically for the off-network printing and specifically referring to that AWS gateway. I just wanted to clarify, when an end user submits a print job, it goes through that external gateway without being held whatsoever. Once it passes through that AWS gateway, it actually ends up into that insular routing service that I had mentioned before. That way the end users, then that way that print job can go to the printer via port 9100 for your end users to walk up to that printer and grab that print job.
All right. We have two more questions. Leslie asks, is this part of our core bundle or core licensing? Kevin, you want to take that one?
I can take that one, Brock. Great question. The advanced security is a separate charge from a licensing perspective. But the great thing about it is that it comes as a feature set. And so if you have a one-off network business case, you do have advanced security. So it comes as a set, and it's flexible in the sense that if you just need licensing for a small portion of your environment, you can get the purchase accordingly, right? But ideally, the savings that come from reducing waste ideally covers the cost of the licenses. And in a broader sense, the proactive approach of protecting PHI and PII, I mean, that's a drop in the bucket compared to a security breach.
And there's like a 30-day, if I remember correctly, there's like a 30-day trial thing that they can do.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah, we offer a 30-day trial. So we encourage you, if this, is something that you've been thinking about or align with current initiatives, you can reach out to your customer success representative and they can outfit you with advanced security licenses. We'll allow you to test this for 30 days, get in, kick the tires, make sure it works as you want it to. And if after 30 days it makes sense to move forward, great, you can get the licensing needed. But if not, it's no big deal.
That last question is actually a perfect segue for our final question from another anonymous user, which is, what if we already have secure release in our environment with another vendor?
Awesome. I can take that one as well. I do see that, like that happens, that you have a secure release through a different vendor. The one thing that is great about the printer logic side is obviously you can consolidate that vendor down to us. So it's one less relationship to manage potentially. But then our CPA is supported on a lot of different print manufacturers. And so it builds almost a common or familiarity with your end user. So the experience is the same regardless of the manufacturer, as long as it's supported by, or the CPA supported.
I hope that has answered all of your questions, but it looks like we're going to close a little bit early today, which is great. This is called a micro-learning session for a reason. We want to honor your time. We've given you a lot of information, and we're definitely going to follow up with you. We're going to send some follow-up emails with a recording of this session and also links to coming sessions. You will also, I imagine, be followed up with by your customer success manager in case you want to ask any more questions about these features or maybe even features we didn't cover today. But as for now, I do really want to thank you all for showing up and asking these great questions and being engaged. We really do appreciate you as customers, and I hope to see you at our next session in August. Bye for now. Thank you so much. Have a good week, everyone.